Hello there, everyone. Dr. Tharp here. And as usual, I am on a mission to help everyone, those who are struggling at least with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, to get their blood sugars controlled. And so I like to come on, most nights to just share some pearls about what you can do to successfully reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. Yesterday, I talked a lot about, the implications of having type 2 diabetes or just having pre-diabetes. And if your blood sugars go unchecked, just how much damage it does to the body overall. And so I promised to come back tonight to talk about the action you can take. So that way you're not just stuck in anxiety about high blood sugars. You're not feeling helpless, when you see your sugars going high and you're not sure what to do. You're frustrated because you've tried so many things. Now you don't have to be helpless. I'm here to empower you with the knowledge that you need, at least the practical tips that you can start implementing into your day-to-day life. And I always say that reversing pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes successfully starts in the kitchen. No doubt about it. 80% is starting in the kitchen, but of course, you have to understand exactly what to eat. So that is what I'm going to delve into tonight. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Tharp, board certified internal medicine physician. I have a passion for helping women. I coach women, especially women who are over the age of 40, like myself, to successfully reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And I'm not talking about temporarily or talking about a diet. I'm talking about reversing it forever and doing it in a way that you're comfortable. You're not feeling starved. You're not feeling frustrated. You're not confused. I do it in a way that's sustainable. And not only am I a physician who has a passion for it, but I'm coming from that place. 5 years ago, I was 30 pounds overweight. I was staring down my first blood pressure medication. And as a physician who rounds in the hospital as well, I know firsthand where this goes. So, when the first signs, pre-diabetes, high blood sugar, insulin resistance, excess body fat, it means you're going in the wrong direction and it will catch up. And so that's what happened to me. And so I implemented significant lifestyle changes. I took the time out to learn about nutrition, and that is where I experienced the positive transformation. And so I've made it my mission now to help others experience that transformation and to demystify it. So many people actually become okay with living with type 2 diabetes or become okay with managing it. And that's because they lose hope. They don't have the right guidance. And so, I saw that there is a significant void out there because people just don't know what to eat. And so I decided to fill that void and to help people through nutrition and, of course, through other ways to successfully reverse prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. So if you're here watching tonight, you're probably in that boat. You probably had that discussion with your doctor recently. Your doctor probably told you you have pre-diabetes. Your doctor probably told you you have full-blown diabetes. And now you are struggling with the idea of starting a medication, or there's discussions about being put on a second or a third medication. And for many out there, the many people fear ultimately needing insulin. So that is what I want to help you avoid. And so I want to do it in a way that feels empowering, puts the control back in your hands. So, what should you eat? What should your kitchen look like? What should your plate look like? I provide the women who I work with, I provide a nutritional guide because that is actually the biggest problem. Many of the women I work with have already made significant changes. And to be honest, A lot of them have made the right changes. But what happens is that there's a lot of confusion about what's healthy for the average person and what's healthy for someone who's battling pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And so there is a difference. Okay, something can be healthy, but then someone who has blood sugar issues will not be able to necessarily tolerate something that could be considered healthy. And so that is pretty much the one of the big differentiations that we go through. I help women understand that yes, you made changes, but these are the things that, these are the things that need to be adjusted. So I did formulate and write a full nutritional guide for everyone who's within my program, who's making that commitment to change and to undergo the transformation. And so they have this as a guide along the way, and they have access to it forevermore, so that they, once they're done with me, once I've walked them through that journey, that they can go on forever and do it comfortably without excessive fasting, without feeling starved. Now let's get to the meat of the matter, and that's what you should be eating. So there is four areas that you have to think about when you're working on your blood sugars, getting your blood sugars down. The first one I'm going to tell you about, and the first one that I would want you to implement this week, is protein. One of the biggest issues that I see with women who come to me, and I would say as a society as a whole, that we are protein deficient. We're not getting enough protein. So, for example, if you had an egg and a bagel this morning for breakfast, that is a dismal amount of protein. One egg is only 6 grams of protein, and a meal should have at minimum of 30 grams. That's particularly important for someone who is struggling with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. And the reason that protein is important is protein actually acts like a buffer. It slows the absorption of glucose into the bloodstream. And so, what would have normally been a very high spike becomes a very low spike, okay? Because the protein helps to keep you full and slows digestion just enough that you get a slow trickle of glucose into your blood versus a very high rush. And that high rush that you have is what ultimately leads to that feeling of lethargy, of just not feeling well after you've eaten a carb heavy meal and you get those spikes. That's why you're feeling like you want to go to sleep, you're fatigued. So you're eating and you think that you should gain energy from it, but instead you're not. And that is because you don't have enough protein in there. Protein is also beneficial because it feeds the muscles on the body. And I say muscles are the metabolic engine. Muscles are the organ in our body that burns glucose. Okay. So it's really important. What happens is after we hit the age of 30, we're losing muscle mass. And imagine what happens. We're losing our metabolic engine. So ultimately, what happens is we're losing our ability to effectively manage glucose. Now, one of the ways to help preserve muscle on your body is to eat enough protein. So I advise 30 grams of protein per meal. That number is a ballpark. Okay. So it's really important. Another point to take away here is it's really important to understand every person's body is different. That's why this cannot necessarily be a one size fits all. It's every person has a different requirement. Some people require more protein, some people will require less protein. So it's really important. I think 30 grams per meal, if you're eating 3 meals a day, that's about 90 to 100 grams of protein. I think that is a safe place to be and a safe starting point. But yours might be more or less, and it just depends on your specific characteristics. So again, that is why it is important to have a discussion with your doctor, or have a discussion with me, or have someone who understands exactly what your body needs, so you know that you're doing it correctly. But the first change that you can make is protein. So instead of having one egg in the morning, you can have 5 eggs in the morning. Or if you want to cut down on the fat content, then you can have one egg and a cup of egg whites, and that equates to about 30 grams of protein. Just also remember, you don't have to have just egg for breakfast, right? We're not held to that. You can eat anything you want for breakfast. So some people say, "Oh, I didn't feel for eggs, so I just had bagel and cream cheese for breakfast," because you didn't feel for egg. The reality is that might be another reason we're lacking in protein, especially with breakfast, because we're in this box. We think that we're held to eating only a certain egg and bacon and things like that. You can have anything. You can have salmon for breakfast. You can have chicken for breakfast. So always remember, breakfast should have a protein, 30 grams of protein. And I challenge you to do that this week and to see what happens with the blood sugars. Now, as a side, I also want to mention that eating is important. Okay, so another issue that I see are if people don't eat enough, they don't eat enough times for the day. And that is another big reason we're protein deficient. So some people are skipping breakfast. Some people are actually trying to intermittent fast in an effort to control blood sugars, right? Because there's a big craze about intermittent fasting. And fasting isn't necessarily wrong, but fasting during the day is not the way to go. You want to fast during the night when you're sleeping. You want to be making the best of your eating window during the day to get as much protein into your body. So if you are someone who's been skipping breakfast, who's been drinking black coffee in the mornings and rushing out the door to work, I challenge you to change that pattern and to start eating. Again, you'll get, if you eat in the morning, eat for lunch, eat for dinner, and you're putting protein in each meal, you will see a difference in your blood sugars. And you're gonna find, if you're someone who's struggling with cravings, who's struggling with energy problems throughout the day, you're gonna find that there's gonna be a big difference in the way you're feeling. So protein, protein, protein. Now, the next area that I want to talk about is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, the prediabetes and type 2 diabetes is really an issue with how we break down carbohydrates, right? Our body is not responding very well to insulin, and that is why we get these high blood sugars. Carbohydrates ultimately break down to glucose in our blood. So the typical carbohydrates are your rice, your pasta, um, so rice, pasta, bread. Those are the typical carbohydrates that we think of when those are the typical foods we think of when we're thinking about carbohydrates. Now, this is an area that you have to start also changing. So if you're someone who's eating white bread, white rice, if you're eating pasta, if you're eating white potatoes, then I would say start making that change. And the change you want to make is go for complex carbohydrates. So, for example, white bread, um, you want it to be an Ezekiel bread, a bread that has a lot of fiber in there and has a good amount of protein content as well. So you want to go for bread that has high fiber and higher protein content. So Ezekiel bread is one example. So if you're someone who's eating a lot of bread, including the whole wheat bread is also a scam. Okay, whole wheat bread is right there with white bread. Okay, you have to go for your whole grain bread, your bread with the seeds and the grains and the fiber in there. That is the bread you want to go for. I advise bread that has at least 5 grams of 4 to 5 grams of fiber. If you can go higher, go higher. By all means, go higher. But a starting point of 4 grams of fiber. So right there, I am suggesting you should be looking at labels, food labels. So when you're picking up your bread, make sure it has 4 to 5 grams of fiber in there, and protein is a plus. Typically, the ones that have a lot of fiber will have protein. And so the bread of choice that I always recommend is Ezekiel bread. Ezekiel bread is not in the typical bakery section. It's not down the typical bread aisle is actually in the freezer section. So give that a shot, but don't go for that typical whole wheat bread and definitely not the white bread. So if you're someone who's having those things, get rid of them. That is a huge part of your blood sugar spikes. So that's the first thing. Carbohydrates in general, complex carbohydrates, you should be going for carbohydrates with high fiber. So, for example, you want to go for sweet potatoes that are high in fiber, high in vitamins, high in antioxidants. So, you want to go for those kind of carbohydrates. Now, don't forget vegetables. Leafy green vegetables are also carbs. They're considered low carb, but you definitely want to start putting a vegetable on your plate with every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner again. So make it a habit to have a leafy green vegetable on your plate. It offers you fiber, vitamins, and again, it acts with protein to keep you full and decreases cravings and buffers the glucose spikes. So those are carbohydrates in a nutshell. So just remember, complex or slow absorbing carbohydrates is what you want to go for. Those are high fiber. Now, the last thing is, well, let's talk about two more things, but the next is fats. Now, a mistake that I typically see is that people, again, when your doctor says, okay, I'll give you 3 months to get your numbers better, or that's it, we're going to start another medication, or we're going to start medications, and they give you 3 months to do it. And they say, okay, lose some weight, because many people who are struggling with type 2 diabetes actually also struggle with excess fat. It's a vicious cycle, excess body fat. And so you are now on the clock, right? You're feeling the pressure to get your numbers better. And so most people start the fasting, which again, it depends how you're fasting, that you can be doing it the wrong way. And they start going low fat. And the low fat diet is also a mistake. Now, when I say fats, you should be consuming fats, but good fats. So it's important to understand what fats you should be consuming, because you can go wrong with the fats that you're consuming. So if you're consuming saturated fats or trans fats, then I would suggest you get rid of those. So what foods contain those? Well, trans fats and saturated fats. Those are the fats that are in cheese. Those are the fats that are in bacon. Those are the fats that are in sausages. Those are the fats that are in margarine. Those are the unhealthy fats. Butter in very small amounts are permissible, and you want to go for grass fed butter. But all of the others, margarine is a no-no when it comes to reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So you definitely want to go for the healthy fats. So what are your healthy fats? Avocado is a healthy fat. You have yeah, olive oil, olives, avocado oil, the fats that are in almonds and other nuts, and the fats that are in seeds like flax seeds or chia seeds. So those are sources of healthy fats, and that is what you need to implement into your diet. So if you go through your kitchen and you have margarine in the fridge, that including there's a butter, I can't believe it's not butter. No, that's bad. You want to go for grass fed butter only. Margarine, I can't believe it's butter. Those have to go. And if you're using grass fed butter, it has to be used in very small amounts. So, why are fats important? So, fats are important because when you're battling prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, you definitely want to aim to have a lower carb content and a higher fat content. Fat is going to be your energy source, but remember, a lot of our hormones in our body are made of protein, and there are and fats. And remember, in order to absorb vitamins during digestion, we need healthy fats in our diet. In order to absorb vitamin A, D, E, and K, you need to have a healthy fat in your diet. So that is why it's important to add fats to every meal that you're having. Of course, it is important to understand how much, and I would say how much is a little bit beyond the scope of the talk that we're having tonight, just because that is really focused on you as an individual and how much your body needs. And so, obviously that is something I help my clients and those who are enrolled within the program. That's what I help each person figure out, because again, every single body is different. And so it would be, irresponsible for me to advise a certain amount of fat without truly understanding your unique and individual characteristics and what your goals are. And, so yeah, but just remember, implementing healthy fats is important. So avocado is one that I have every single day. Avocado is something I have twice a day on my plate. I also implement a lot of seeds and nuts into my meals. And if you do go ahead and access the free meal plan that I'll have, you will see that I do in how I incorporate those into the meal plan. And the meal plan that's there, that's exactly how I eat every day. That's how I overcame insulin resistance. That's how I shed 30 pounds. And that's what helped me to feel better overall. So implementing fats are important. Now, the very last thing I want to stress is fiber. Again, another area that is very deficient in the average American diet. Fiber is important because it helps to buffer the rapid absorption of glucose into the blood. And so fiber is also very critical for gut health as well. So if you're someone who not only struggles with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, but you're struggling with gut issues, you're having bloating, you're having constipation, then I would say it's really important to start with assessing how much fiber you're getting. Now, everyone should be having about the same amount of fiber. It can be about 25 to 30 grams of fiber per day. Again, most people are getting maybe 10 grams of fiber. And the reality is, you can get a lot of fiber from your diet. Again, you just have to be very focused and intentional about what you're eating and understanding the purpose that each food serves. So everything that I mentioned, leafy green vegetables, sweet potatoes, nuts and seeds, those are very high in fiber. So if you're incorporating those into your meals every day, you should be getting enough fiber. Fiber is really important to keep you regular. It's a detox, right? It helps with detox, because every time we go to the bathroom, whether we're doing number one or number two, we are going through a process of detoxification. So if we're doing something that impairs our ability to eliminate toxins, then it means we're not healthy, right? So that is fiber is also a very critical part of blood sugar control. And about 25 to 30 grams of fiber. How do you know you're getting enough fiber? Is you really have to be reading nutritional labels, and you really have to be tallying the numbers. So again, that is important when you're on the journey of reversing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. You have to understand how to read labels, how to tally the numbers, how to interpret the numbers, and how to stay within your budgets, right? Because again, every single food, healthy or not, can affect the body in a negative way if you're eating too much of it. So that is why it's really important as an individual to understand what your body needs, and then understand and then figure out what the numbers are and where you should be fitting, so you know what the goals are from day to day. So that is pretty much it in a nutshell. Remember, protein, complex carbohydrates. You want to be implementing healthy fats only, and you want to make sure you're getting enough fiber. Of course, if you're getting enough fiber, you want to be getting enough water. So hydration is also a critical part of the process. So that is basically the foundation, right? These are the basic concepts that I'm offering. I think if you're going to start anywhere, I would advise starting with protein, making sure you're getting good protein into your diet. So try that this week. Focus on protein, focus on fiber too as well, but focus on getting protein in, quality protein. So quality proteins are is not bacon. You're not bacon is not a considered a good source of protein. Um, so you definitely want to go for high quality and as natural as possible protein. So that's where you're going for fish, wild caught preferably. That's where you want to go for your chicken, your ground turkey. You want to go for egg. So those are high quality proteins. You don't want to be using things like um, bacon as a source or cheese as a source. That's a huge mistake. Cheese has protein, bacon has protein, but again, they have terrible fats in there. And as someone who's struggling with blood sugar issues, the last thing you need is to be eating the wrong amount of fats, because that is going to completely throw your cholesterol levels off. And very likely, if you're battling blood sugar issues, you're also battling cholesterol issues. So you want to be really careful about the source of protein, that it's high quality and that it's lean. So I challenge you this week to at least try that and fit that into 3 meals for the day. As a founder of the Reverse Her Challenge, again, I'm really on a mission to help women understand that it's very doable and you can turn your numbers back naturally. And so I am here for you. If you feel that you want that extra help, if you feel that you want to do that one-on-one, consultation to figure out where your numbers are and enroll into the program, then feel free. Just click the link in the bio and you can book your free discovery call to learn more about what we do, our strategy, because our strategy it goes beyond nutrition. Nutrition is a large part of it. But in order to successfully reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, I call it the freedom formula. We have to go a bit beyond just nutrition to do that. And so there's other factors that are incorporated to make it comfortable, achievable, and successful. And I can tell you the success rate is very good. Um, as long as you do the work, the numbers respond. And there's no other way. The way I do it is the way it should be done. It's evidence based, it's based in science. It's basically the system that your doctor is telling you to do when they say I'll give you 3 months, but unfortunately they don't spend the time with you going through that. I take the time every week. I sit with you, I do group coaching. You have the nutrition guide, so the guidance is there to get you the results that you want and to help you avoid relying on medications, and to avoid being uncomfortable as you reclaim your health and your well-being. So click the link in the bio if you want to book my call. The other thing is I do have a free meal plan in there. The meal plan is also offers some good insight into everything I just talked about. And you can build your own meal plan. It's very flexible. You can change things out, switch things out however you want. But it's also a good starting point. And there you get a free meal plan. And please take the time to do the quizzes there, because the quizzes will give you some insight about where you are, what your beginning point is, and where you need to be. And then make use of the grocery list. Again, there is no other way to do this. This is the way. And so, again, the success rate is very high as long as you do the work. So with that, I'm going to open the floor to any questions or comments. If there's any questions or comments, then um, I am open to if you're having any struggles, if you have any questions, even if not related to this tonight, to nutrition, then I am open to any questions. If not, then feel free. You can always leave a comment under the live. Leave a comment about suggestions for topics down the line, and I'll definitely be able to cover that and address that. Because if you have that question, very likely someone else has that question. If you have that struggle, very likely someone else has that struggle. So With that, I will close up. Just remember to grab your free meal plan and get started. Action is everything here, right? Action is everything. Don't get paralyzed by anxiety. Action is important. All right, guys, have a good night.